Hey, I'm Dave, and you're listening to another episode of Dying to Listen podcast presented by the Disc Golf Dyers Guild. Today, we have an amazing dyer, JK. No, that's his name, Jay Kennedy, not just Kennedy. Jay, thank you for being on this podcast, and we'll get into it. So, I'm assuming you play disc golf.
Absolutely.
What got you into disc golf?
Oh, that's so long ago I don't remember. I started playing in 1989, and I played for about 3 years, and went off to college. Played a little bit in college, got out, and played up until about 2001, and I had about a 20-year hiatus. I quit drinking in 2001, and when I did that, I had to step away from disc golf because at the time I was hanging around with some pretty deviant characters, and it was really hard not to do that, and it was associated with disc golf. So, but during the pandemic in 2020. Like a lot of other husbands, my wife was, trying to get me out of the house and just get me out of her hair. And I picked it back up, and I went to this tournament with a whole bunch of PFN stuff. There was I had a ridiculous bag full of old discs, and I did really well. And I met a bunch of really cool people, and they encouraged me to come back out. I met the course manager for my local track out here in the country, and the rest is history. I dove back in, into the deep end.
So, not to make you sound old, so you said you started playing in 89. Mm-hmm. I was born in 88.
Wow.
But you definitely seen some shit.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff for sure.
That must be very interesting to see how disc golf has evolved over that time frame.
Absolutely. The molds, the technology, what we understand about just body mechanics, and staying healthy and staying not injuring yourself. And none of that existed for me back in the 80s and 90s. But now at 52 and with a healthy, desire to compete at a competent level, I knew that I had a lot of practice and a lot of hard work in front of me. So I put way more time and energy into practicing disc golf than I've ever put into dying. But I've seen some pretty crazy stuff and some changes, but I think most of all, it's just been in body mechanics and what we understand about flight and taking good care of ourselves.
Yeah, no, that's awesome that you're still playing disc golf, and it's definitely good to be physical active, even at your old, ripe age. Someday I'll be there too, so a couple decades. Do you still have some of your first discs, like those pre-flight numbered discs?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you ever plan on selling those?
No. I've given a few away. Like I had a Big Bird rock that I gave to a good buddy of mine. But I still have a Champion Monster, a Champion Beast, an Old Wolf. Most of them are hung up now, though. I've switched over to new plastic. One of my favorite discs is the Vandal that you sent to me.
Nice. I was going to say, how is that doing? You didn't throw it into a river or anything yet?
Nope. I cherish it. That is my number one go-to driver.
Okay. That makes me happy because that was literally, to this date, my favorite discs that I've ever dyed.
Oh, man. Well, then it's a match made in heaven because I really do. I got turned on to that mold and by Valerie Holtz at Disc Golf Depot up in Portland. And it's that die and that disc is my number one driver.
Awesome. At least you're actually using it and not looking at it on a wall.
Absolutely. I use it every day.
Awesome. So speaking of disc dyeing, what got you into disc dyeing?
I have a good friend in Santa Cruz area, and she's a pour painter. And I reached out to her originally to see about using some of her images and putting them on discs. And as I researched that process of how to do that, I ran across the Dyers page that we're all part of now. And I ran across, I started realizing that I would have to do a print, and then that would make the disc illegal, and add weight to it. And as I researched it, I found the Dyers page, and I think some of the first stuff that I stumbled across was Tiffany Shaw. And I searched her out on YouTube and watched some videos, and I saw some examples from some of the OG Dyers. I think maybe Chase had something out there, and certainly I think Jeff Darrow had something out there that I saw, and I saved a few images, and I just knew that that was the direction I wanted to go as far as cells. And that's what I always wanted to do, was to basically create a pour painting and replicate that onto a disc. That was
That's
I was never going back. That was what I wanted to do.
that's awesome. What year did you start dyeing?
I started little over 2 years ago.
All right, so relatively new.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first disc that you dyed?
Yes, it is. I actually have it right here. Hang tight.
Nice.
Bag it to this day. It is a 157 Waisaki Destroyer.
Nice.
And it is beat to hell, and it's like a glue bed. And but I love it. I use it almost as much as the Vandal you dyed for me.
That's awesome. It's awesome that you still haven't didn't lose it yet.
I try to keep them in the fairways.
Yes, that's the goal. I mean, that is the goal. Do you remember the second or third disc that you dyed?
No. No, I think it was some like DX plastic. I think I made some of the same mistakes that a lot of folks make. I happened to get lucky on the Star Destroyer, and then I ran out and got a whole bunch of white DX plastic, and immediately found out that I pulled it out, and I was really excited, and it all just washed off. There's like a little faded image on there or something.
Wah, wah.
Yeah.
So I know your goal was to do the cells, but what dye methods have you all tried?
I did glue beds in the beginning, and just kind of swirly, paisley looking things. I saw some videos of people, swirling sticks through their dyes. But I knew right after that, I knew right after that, that was not what I wanted. That was not what I was after. It didn't have the depth and the detail that I was looking for. So I abandoned that and went to Floetrol almost within less than a month. I was on to Floetrol.
So with your first Floetrol dyes, were you happy with the results that you got?
No. I knew that the mixes were off because cells were forming, but they weren't holding up. What was coming out on the disc was not what I was looking at in the bed, so I knew something was off. And my wife encouraged me to start taking notes in the very beginning. She said, that's the way you do things, so you need to bust out a notebook and start crossing off the stuff that works and stuff that doesn't. And so no, yeah, to answer your question, I was not happy at all.
So what mistakes did you make, and what did you do to correct those mistakes to get to the direction and look that you wanted to with the Floetrol stuff?
I knew that the cells weren't holding up under heat. And So it had something to do. I figured what we were dealing with was kind of like hydro dipping. The image that we were looking at was just a micro thin layer, and I needed to transfer that image. And so I figured what I was looking at was right, but when I put the disc down in it, the contact with the disc and then adding the heat over time, the cells weren't holding up. So I kind of look at each cell as just that, a cell of color inside of it, and it has a rim, a very undetectable thickness, but a thickness nonetheless. And I figured I needed to figure out how to strengthen up those walls, and so the cells wouldn't break apart and give me that faded look. And that's when I got into just torch work. Basically, is what it amounts to, is that heat and getting the bed ready and strengthening up all those cells. I mean, if you when you do torch work, I don't know if other people have noticed this, but when you make a cell bed and you take a torch to it from a safe distance, not close, it'll crackle if you get too close. But from a distance, as you add that heat, you can actually see the cells constrict. They'll tighten up. And I knew that had something to do with the final result. And as I got better at doing torch work and preparing my beds and tightening up those cells, my results improved dramatically. I also had to tweak with my mixes. I knew that I had a feeling that alcohol was not helpful for cells. Any alcohol in the mix, I tell everyone, get rid of the alcohol, get rid of the water. Just Floetrol, dye, and color enhancer. That's it. And mix methodically and thoroughly. Some people shake their dyes. I don't. I'm an avid palette knife user. I mix everything with a palette knife by hand, and I've tried other ways, and the results just aren't there for me. So I just go back to the tried and true palette knife, slow and steady.
So when you create your mixtures, what do you use, like the container, do you use to mix the mixture in?
Just squirt bottles.
Okay.
Yeah, condiment bottles. What's nice is that you can kind of hold, as you're holding the bottle and you run that palette knife down in there, you can feel the palette knife against the plastic. And if you ever get clumps on the palette knife, you can actually see it smear on the side of the bottle, and then you know that all the dye is not mixed in yet. And so it's very tactile. But I know when the dyes are ready to make beds because I'm just that close to it, I guess. I don't know. To each their own. I know, like, Jeff shakes his up in like gallon jugs or something like that. And everyone does it differently. I'm just adamant about the palette knife.
Yeah. What size condiment jars do you use?
I think they're, I don't know, just a regular size. I don't know if
Yeah.
those are 12 ounce or
Okay.
14
Yeah.
ounce, or I don't know, but I think my bottles are usually between 10 and 12 ounce, 10 and 12 ounces.
Gotcha. Do you have a specific ratio of dye to Floetrol that you use?
Yeah, just standard prescription. I use 1 teaspoon per 10 ounces or so.
Gotcha.
If there's a little bit more Floetrol in the some colors, I mix a little bit more of. Like, I don't mix as much black, so I might put in 8 ounces of Floetrol, but I still use a teaspoon because I like my blacks really black. And then and if you put in 12 ounces and you put in lemon zest, it might just be a lighter yellow, but not too much difference with an ounce or two extra.
Gotcha. So I'm curious, have you noticed a real difference between actually shaking the bottle of mixture versus mixing it with the palette knife?
Yeah.
Really?
It's in the bubbles. those little fine bubbles. I noticed when I shake my mix, when I was shaking my mixes up, um, I'd often have like little stars in the finished disc if you look closely. From a distance and pictures that we share on the internet, you can't really see them, but to me, I could see little specks. It's as if it wasn't completely, the dye wasn't completely dissolved. Because you're
Hmm.
talking about every little granule of that dye is capable of dispersing itself into the floetrol. But as with old, the old painters of the past, when they mix their paints with their palette knives, they really work that pigment into their medium, the oil, or in this case, Floetrol. And that's why I really like palette knife, because I know that all of the little granules are dissolved into that Floetrol, and I don't have to worry about air bubbles and hitting the Floetrol with a torch and getting those bubbles to pop, which may in turn create some cells that I don't necessarily want. I try to do things pretty on. I try to do cells on purpose. They are random, but I try to add a sense of structure around it.
Do you add anything else to actually create the cells, like silicone oil?
Yes, yeah. All my dyes, including a bottle of, I use a bottle of clear Floetrol, just straight Floetrol, and I actually add a splash of color enhancer to that and oil. So I have white and I have black, and then I have my six, basic colors in the rainbow under that. So I use 8 colors.
What's the oil that you use?
I use the Michaels silicone oil, and I also
Okay.
have dimethicone, and I've used that a few times for larger cells. I don't think that that particular dimethicone that I have makes a strong cell, though. So I just excuse me, I just abandoned it. I didn't
Hmm.
I didn't feel that uh, the clarity and the crispness that I like in my dyes was there with the dimethicone. So I haven't used it for at least 6 or 7 months.
So the oil that you use, I'm unfamiliar with it, but if you had to compare the viscosity to the dimethicone, would it be thicker or thinner?
Thinner,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, if you had to describe the viscosity of the oil, how would you describe it?
Yeah. Oily.
Okay, great, great scientific answer there. Fantastic. Also curious about the color intensifier. Have you noticed a difference using that versus not?
Absolutely.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. It gets your colors to pop. There's
Huh.
no, yeah, there's no comparison. You mix up dyes without it and run some discs. It would be a fun experiment, other than the fact that it's kind of a waste, because I don't I don't know about adding the color intensifier after the dye's already mixed. So that's something I haven't done yet. What I usually do is I put in the Floetrol, I put in my teaspoon of dye, I put in a big splash dropper of the intensifier, and then I start mixing. So uh, I don't know, because I haven't experimented with it yet. But it makes a huge difference. It would be fun to see the difference. But I know that when I started using the intensifier, I started getting the colors to come out the way I wanted them, like the royal purple and the lemon zest and the Caribbean blue, and the way they were all melding together had a finished look, that which was what I was looking for.
That is also fascinating. Is that color intensifier like the packets that you get with iDye, or do you have?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And I think it's just a little bit of I think it's a little bit of denatured alcohol, which kind of goes against what I was saying earlier, but and clear dish soap, from what I understand. Now I have made that mixture what I thought was the right viscosity and stuff, and tried it to make my own color intensifier, and it sucked.
Hmm.
So I don't know what's in it, but I actually I buy iDye Poly Black, and I save all those color packets for my dye mixes.
So the mixture is just magic, pure magic. And speaking of colors, what colors do you like to use?
Well, I use a custom orange. Well, red, fire red is my favorite red from Pro Chemical and Dye, and then I make a custom orange with the fire red and the lemon zest, and then the lemon zest. I make a custom green, which was just lemon zest with a little bit of Caribbean blue and a little bit of cobalt blue, and then I make then I use the Caribbean blue. Sometimes I do use a darker blue if I want to have a little darker shade on a cell. Um, and then I make a royal purple, and sometimes I'll make a custom purple, but very rarely anymore. I used to make one with the royal purple, and then I just add a little bit of Caribbean blue to it, which makes a wonderful purple. Um, but I found that all those purples are easily obtained by the way I layer the way I lay out the colors anyway. So I was getting the purple I wanted, and I didn't need a squirt bottle to get it.
I see that you like bright and vibrant colors.
Yeah, that's so we can find our discs.
Exactly. And I'm assuming the black that you like to use is iDye black?
It's a custom, but it's primarily iDye. So my black is I have it weighted out, but it's almost all iDye and some onyx and some dark dungeon. So
Gotcha.
a little bit of both. So it's a goes more to like a dark purple spectrum.
So, some questions on your bed creation. What container do you use to house the Floetrol bed?
I've had $3 discs from day one that I got at the dollar store. I have a red one, a yellow one, and a green one.
Nice. Like, how big is the diameter on those?
Just slightly bigger than,
Yeah.
if I had this disc here, it would be maybe about out to here.
How deep is it?
About 3/4 of an inch, maybe.
Gotcha. So your beds aren't really necessarily that deep.
No, no. I start off with about an 1/8 inch layer of Floetrol, and then it comes up a little bit as you add colors, and then there's quite a bit of displacement. So if I'm doing a flat top disc like a Toro or something like that, I don't need to have them that deep, just so long as they float and they won't bottom out. But when you start getting into the domier discs, the destroyers and such, you want to make sure you have enough Floetrol in there so when the displacement happens, it doesn't bottom out, and there's enough to work up to the edges and not overflow. So it's a fine line, but I don't know. Everybody just gets used to how much we can get away with.
Yeah. So I feel like you overflow a lot, and that's why you have that towel.
Oh, Towley. No, actually, that's not what that's from. What that's actually from is when the Floetrol starts to thicken up and it clogs the tip. You can kind of give it a little squeeze and get that clog to stick its little head out, and then I put my finger on Towley in that thing, and I just pull that booger out of the squeeze bottle. And so over time, doing that a gazillion times, and then I used sticks to level things out, and then the sticks got stuck on the towel, and it just and now Towley's more of like he helps me balance things, so when I'm making my beds, he keeps my table level, or I can move that dollar disc around just ever so slightly and get that sweet spot. And so my designs are centered because of Towley. If I didn't have Towley, I don't even know what I'd quit dyeing.
That's crazy. Well, don't forget your towel.
No.
Have you noticed some of the colors sink more than others when you put them on top of the base? No?
No, it's not like glue beds. Excuse me. Yeah, it's not like glue beds, the droppers, I think when I was doing traveling cups, that's where it comes into play. So when you layer colors in a cup and you put it out and the dyes just they're all kind of bleeding together coming out of the bottom of that thing. That's when the densities really play a part in how you layer those colors. That was also too much random for me, and that was not what I was looking for. Even though I still do some traveling cups every now and then, I did not want the unknown factors that come with that style.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I really was headed. I've always wanted to go to a very purposeful design method.
So how do you layer colors on top of the base Floetrol bed?
Just rings or stripes or whatever. I think I made a post recently where I drew a picture out of a face. I just drew a face, and then pulled the Saran wrap and it will make a cool design. I don't really have anything. Some people use cake plates. I kind of do rings, where I'll do ring with a bridge across. This I like to call them color bridges. I just kind of put them down how I see fit.
So you kind of answered the question that I was going to ask next is, what do you use to swipe with? And it's Saran wrap. Do you have any specific method of how you pull that Saran wrap over the Floetrol?
Yeah, I pull up the corners. I think quite a few videos out now, people doing the exact same thing that I do. I might go a little slower. People usually do that pretty quick. But I don't think it really matters that much. I think the quicker you go, you might have muddying colors. You might have a little bit more drift with your color palette, but I don't know. I don't have anything in my notes that says go. I just try to go slower, and I pull towards the center, from the outside up and towards the center, and then I just kind of twist it off and throw it away.
Do you swipe more than once?
I don't do very many swipes, but sometimes I'll pull a second time, but very rarely. If I have to pull another saran, another piece of saran over a design that isn't, selling up properly, it's probably because of my mixes and not because of the saran wrap. Just this morning, I went out to go do a bed for a guy, and I just wasn't happy at all with the pull, and it was grainy, and instead of doing another saran wrap, I tried to do like a royal purple swipe across the whole thing to see if I could salvage the Floetrol that was in there, and it just wasn't. It wasn't ever gonna. So yeah.
How long do you let the cells develop for, and is there anything that you do to develop them?
Heat. You can see. I think. Like in Robert Foster's chameleon setup. He puts it under that heat lamp, and that the heat helps develop the cells, and it also tightens up the cells. So those cells, if you put it on time lapse, even though they're creating, they're also constricting at the same time. And so the rim around each one of those cells, when we put heat to them, is tightening up, and it's actually creating a little dam or a sticker, if you will. We're creating a sticker that we want to stick to the disc immediately. So if you've prepared your bed, if you take a clear disc, and this is how I learned this, was dropping in a Champion plastic into a bed. The die didn't work out, but I learned something by putting it in. When I put it into the bed and the bed was done properly, I could spin the disc in the Floetrol and it didn't affect the design. So I'm all like, now I'm onto something. Now I have figured out, that I've made that thing basically a sticker, and it sticks immediately to the disc. Now I try to be careful. I don't want it to drift too much, and you can have some problems out on the outer rim if you don't stick around and let the disc settle into the design. But I knew that the heat was a big part of getting the bed ready. I think a lot of people will create a cell bed and they just put a disc right into it, and there's so much stuff that's happening underneath. It's the bed just simply isn't ready for a disc, and heat will stop cells from creating too. So you can it will generate cells, but it will also stop it from growing. So you got to work quick, but the heat will arrest the growth and allow you to get that disc down into the bed and get that image on the disc, and get it cooking.
So on average, how long do you let the cells develop for?
I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't know, something like that. Just when it
Gotcha.
looks good, and and I start doing the torch work, and getting, and as I'm doing that torch work, it usually takes about 5 minutes or something like that.
That's awesome that you did that experiment with the clear disc, because like with clear glue, you have the clear glue bed, then you have the die, then you have the disc, and the clear glue and the disc kind of sandwich that die, and it's like a sticker, it sticks there. And that's fascinating with Floetrol. It's what you experienced was kind of the same concept, where once it touches the disc, it's stuck on there and not really going to move.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand the concept of getting that bed ready, and it's just a micro thin layer. And it's like a cross between hydro dipping, where you're pushing something all the way through the design, and then a little bit of screen printing, as well. Or like sort of, like a cross between screen printing and hydro dipping, except you're just not pushing the image all the way through, but you want that really thin layer to be like a micro sticker. Yeah.
So do you think that happens because when you use heat to the Floetrol, it starts to become like the booger consistency, which makes it,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. That is exactly what happens, is it creates that micro thin layer, and you freeze the image that you want. And then it's time to put it on the disc.
Man, this is fascinating. My mind's like, nice. How long do you typically leave the disc under the heat for, assuming you use heat?
Yeah, I've been using dehydrator pretty consistently now. It took me a little while to get used to it, and I was running stuff at 105. In my world, it's really important to salvage the stamp, especially recently. God, I've had some crazy discs coming through my lab, getting sent to me. I did just like that, like a broken claw. It was just like a white broken claw, and I was just like, oh my god, it's like this is $120 disc, And then I had a Night Strike and a Night Strike 2 that came in those mystery boxes a few years back from Perkins. Anyways, my point is that the stamps in a lot of cases are important. And I found that 105 even is just a little too hot. So I brought the temperature down to 100, and then ramped the time up. And now I'm running a lot of stuff at like 95 degrees and running it for 3.5, 4 hours. It depends a lot on the feeling of the stamp and the type of plastic. Um, but 95 is really kind of the safety zone, and you just need to add a little extra time. And uh, I think Michael O'Hearn turned me on to just letting the disc sit in there. Once it's done, and if you can, just let it sit for 3 or 4 hours. Even overnight. If your image is stuck on there and you baked it on good, it's just going to saturate more with that extra 6 or 7 hours, and you get that really deep saturation.
Yeah.
That usually happens with discs that I do at night. So I try to do a couple discs in the morning, and then I have to go about my day, and then I'll do a couple more at night. And those ones I let sit, and I'll catch them in the morning and wash them off. But to answer your question, it depends on plastic, and generally speaking, I'm around 95 or 100 nowadays. For anywhere, I haven't put anything in the dehydrator for less than 3 hours in a long time. That seems can be kind of the sweet spot.
What got you turned on to the dehydrator?
I don't know. I think somebody in Finland was doing it, and honestly, I don't know, Dave. I think it was somebody that I saw in Finland was doing it. I can't remember who it was.
So I'm assuming you like the dehydrator a lot better than the heat lamp.
Yeah, I do now. The only difference is the second beds are sometimes a little tough with the dehydrator. There's just a little bit too much moisture loss, and so the material that's left over is a little thicker. And yeah, I don't know. With heat lamps, it seems like when I'd pull a disc, the second bed was always definitely dippable. You could send another disc into it. So when you're trying to crank out a bunch of discs, a shop order or something like that, it's really nice to have a second bed that looks bitchin' that you can drop a disc into. And that's the nice thing about running heat lamps. So sometimes with shop orders, I will run double heat lamps on opposite ends of a table, so I can get 4 discs out of 2 beds.
Nice, man. This is all good information. How many how many discs do you typically get out of a bed?
Well, I recharge the beds, so I don't without adding dye, 2, the first one and the second one. And then what I'll do is after the second one, if I'm still in that same color palette, I'll just add some color rings around it, do a pull, and and just refresh it. I think I did a post a couple weeks ago that showed like the first bed and then a recharge bed, and very little material, and I got a cool design out of it with just minimal work, minimal material, and good results.
Awesome. So are you currently happy with the product and designs that you're producing? And is there anything else that you would want to experiment or expand on?
Yeah, I'm happy with where things are now. It's the dying world is so populated. I mean, where there's so many of us and there's so much talent out there, it's hard to stand out. And I think my dyes stand out. I think they speak for themselves. I'm starting to get some fun stuff. I just recently was chatting with Gavin Babcock, so I'm going to be passing off some stuff to him in Portland, and there's good things happening, and I think you just, you put your best foot forward, and I don't do a lot of advertising. People kind of seek me out, and I don't have, I don't have a lot of inventory, so that's good.
Yeah, you just got to make sure to not have those smudges that look like a JK on your disc all the
Yeah,
time. That's pretty annoying.
that was my son's idea.
Nice. Shit, what was I going to say? Do you have a favorite accessory that you like to use for dyeing besides Towelly?
In my palette knife, I couldn't dye without tally or a palette knife.
Nice. All right. What inspires your dye creations? Which, okay, I'm going to re-ask that because I have an idea, but I'm assuming I know what inspires your dye creations, but in your own words, what inspires what you create?
Well, I think for me, it's just, it really is very therapeutic. But what inspires me, I guess, is just my natural surroundings, and my love for the sport and color. I've always been an artist, and to have an avenue to express, those colors, and not only that, but then to be able to go out and play um, with them and see people playing with them. I run into people all the time now. It's crazy. I was just down in Vegas, and they saw that I was in Vegas and said, "Hey, come on, say hi." And so it's just really, that inspires me. What inspires me is just the community, art, my surroundings. I've always lived in the country. I live on 40 acres right now, and so we see beautiful sunsets and sunrises, and lots of plants and trees, and so I don't know. What do you think inspires me?
Well, I know you said the acrylic painting pours inspired you at first, so I'm
Yeah.
assuming you wanted to reproduce that, so that was part of it. But the next question you kind of answered, but why do you like disc dyeing, and what keeps you dyeing discs?
Oh man, I don't know, because we're all nuts. It's ridiculously addictive, and why we become addicted to certain outlets. I can think of a lot worse things to be addicted to. I don't think anyone's been put in jail for dyeing discs. So for me, it's in my personality. I have a rather addictive personality. I tend to go, neck deep into everything I get involved with, give it 100%. And disc dyeing was just waiting for me to jump in. I don't know how else to explain it. I don't know why I keep doing it other than the fact that I'm just have to.
Nice. So you're going to die until you die.
Yeah, pretty much.
So do you have any notable fail stories or anything that was interesting when you were experimenting?
Just recently, some guy sent me 3 bottles of color, in those, the bottles that you can have acetone stuff in it. It was pre-mixed color, and there was no sediment in it. And I had them for, it seemed like a year, and I didn't know who sent them to me. They just showed up, and I didn't have a record player, so I didn't do spin dyes. And then eventually a colleague, Eagle McMulligan, Jason, came out to the farm and brought me a record player, and he showed me a little bit of spin stuff, and I showed him a cell dye, and I started using those colors in those bottles with Q-tips to finish up the rims on some dyes. And I just kept telling myself, you got to put the top back on. You got to put the top back on. You got to put the top back on. And sure as shit, I had the royal purple or the pink, and I knocked it, and it just went everywhere. But I I dye in a lab. My place is absolutely filthy, messy, colors everywhere. So it wasn't that big of a deal, but it did go everywhere. I've also I've dropped a bed with a disc in it, on the way to the dehydrator. Everything under the sun, except I've never been allowed to do it inside. So there you have it. I haven't wrecked any furniture or floors that are meant to be protected.
Where is your dye lab?
It's out my barn. It's actually I was a cannabis farmer for the past 5 years, and I have an indoor space that I use for curing. And I didn't plant this year. The economy in that industry is just tanked, and instead of planting, I just moved all my dye stuff into my indoor space, which is nice. It's insulated, and I have a fan and heat and lots of electricity. So it's a very comfortable space, and I'm just using it for art now.
That's awesome. I'm assuming it's temperature controlled.
To a certain extent. I mean, in the summertime, I have AC units that I can turn on if I want, but it stays nice and cool. It's insulated on all sides and above.
And speaking of that, have you noticed any difference with your dyes in summer and winter with the different temperatures?
No.
Huh?
No. If the room's cold, though, of course the mixes become slower. So I keep a little space heater by my little dye area. It's a bigger room. It's about an 800 square foot room. So I just dye in one corner of it, and I keep a little space heater over there.
All right. So you may see him in a different location. That is because his laptop battery died. But we are back. So yeah, let's see. Where the hell were we? So it sounds like you don't have a whole lot of inventory of discs, and I'm assuming you do a lot of commission discs.
Yeah, I do a lot of commission work, and I do a lot of shop work, primarily for Disc Golf Depot up in Portland. But I've done stuff for All Day Disc Golf and Oregon Disc Golf, and but I'm slowly but surely building a little roster of some bigger arms that and repeat customers, and I just very rarely have inventory available, which it's a problem, but it's a good problem to have. I mean, I guess there's a lot of people that are get stuck on dyes, and that's not good.
So how big is your backlog?
You mean is right now? I don't let it get too out of hand. I think right now I probably have maybe 20 or 30 to get through.
That's a decent amount, but yeah. Have you had any weird commissions at all?
No.
Yeah, I figured it'd be kind of pretty standard because people know what you produce, and you don't do stencils. So.
Yeah, I don't do stencils. I want to. I have a circuit cutter. But it's just so time consuming, and I know that it makes it look easy, but that extra process and the hot dip or brushing on your blacks is just it's something I don't have, and for me it needs to be economical too. I mean, I knew I'm spending money. I was trying to show my kids that you could have a hobby, and you could also make that hobby help pay for itself if you do it right. And so I always try to be mindful of what I'm spending on discs and material and shipping and those sorts of things. So when I sell a disc, it's equitable for me, and it's equitable, and it's a good deal for the golfer as well. Whereas I feel like some of the stencil work, even some stuff that I dye right now, it's just absolute lunacy that you can buy a disc from some of the talent that's out there for $50 or $60, and when it easily should be $200 or $300. How
Yeah.
much time is spent on them, and I can't see myself getting into that because of that.
Yeah, no. Don't get into stencil work if you want to make money.
Well, I don't want to. It's not necessarily about making money either, though.
Yeah.
It's just about not losing my time. I have two
Yeah.
kids and a lot of responsibilities, and so the time that I have needs to be that I have to spend on discs. I wanted to be gratifying and economical, and I can't see that. I can see it being gratifying doing the stencil work for myself and maybe close golfing buddies, but I can't see it being economical for turning around orders for folks.
Yeah. Do it as kind of like a passion thing to just get your kicks off that way in something different, but large production and custom stencils for commission work, not great.
I could see if you had. Well, I can't really see. I had CJ Webb sent me a disc. I don't know, a year or so ago. We did a little collab, and he sent me a disc that still had the vinyl on it, and I didn't really know what to do. I mean, I opened this thing. This thing's covered with plastic, and I'm just like, oh, shit. What do I do? I didn't really know what to take off and what to leave on. But I just remember it being a pain in the ass, the sticky stuff that was all over the disc and cleaning it off. And it was definitely not something I could see myself doing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh, why do I torture myself with stencils?
Because they kick ass.
They do. But yeah, it's a passion thing that I enjoy doing them.
And I am grateful that there are artists such as yourself that do them, because they do. They kick ass.
Yeah. Well, keep on what you're doing with the Floetrol stuff, because you're kicking ass with that, obviously.
Thanks.
The other question that I wanted to ask is, how do you dispose of your Floetrol?
I keep it in 5-gallon bucket with a lid. And when it fills up to the top, I take it to our local hazmat place, the same place that you dispose of paint and other hazardous chemicals. In Lane County, we pride ourselves in all kinds of recycling stuff. I live outside of Eugene, which is kind of the hub of a lot of that counterculture, 60s recycling, terror, just all that stuff is right around me. So I just a simple Google search, and I had my answer within minutes.
Right on. How much Floetrol do you actually go through in, say, a month?
How much is in the big jugs?
I think it's a gallon.
So I probably go through 2 gallons.
Okay, not too bad.
If that.
Yeah. Where do you procure your Floetrol at?
It's all over the place where I am. Mm-hmm. So my local Ace Hardware out here in Veneta carries it at my request, but they sell it for $18, $17.99 per gallon, and I can get it in town for $14.99. So,
gotcha. That's not too bad.
No, it's not bad at all.
Have you vended at any events?
Yeah.
Great. Do you like vending at events?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, these answers and questions are going great. Do you have any tips that you would like to give anybody that does want to vend at events to help them be successful?
No.
Great. All right. Move.
I mean, I would say don't take too much. Don't take, I think a lot of people over-die in getting prepared to go to those sorts of things. And they show up with every mold and every color they can think of, and they get 40 or 50 discs deep. into going to an event, and maybe that's the result of a lot of dying or discs that hadn't sold, and you're trying to get rid of old inventory. But my theory has always been to keep it small, and so when I'm getting ready to go to an event, I might do 10 to 20, and I'm hoping to get rid of all of them. So, which is usually the case. So
That's awesome.
I would recommend that you don't die too much in getting ready for an event, unless of course you already have the inventory. Then by all means, take it, sell it, vend it. You look like a big time vendor at that point when you have, this is my Discraft, this is my Innova, this is my. I just put them out on a tie dye. The ones that I want to sell, and people come by and look at them, and some of them, they fall in love right away, and cash money.
Nice. And speaking of cash money, what do you typically sell your discs at for price?
It's the same as everybody else. I think I usually double the price of the disc and add shipping.
Okay.
So if I have an $18 disc, that's 36, and then add 6 for shipping, so like $45, something like that.
Makes sense.
Locally, like I'll sell to shops a finished disc for 30. They usually like to turn around and sell them for 35. And I don't charge anything to pros, touring pros. I do all just, they're busy, and that's advertising in and of itself. So a big arm throwing your disc is like a gigantic business card. So
what pros throw your discs?
I don't know. I'd have to. I haven't really been keeping track. Like I said, I just most recently was talking with Gavin Babcock, and Alden Harris reached out, and so I might be doing something for him. I've had a couple other people trolling my site since then. So yeah, and a lot of local big arms too. This kid up in Portland, Dallas, Garber, which is a 15-year-old kid, and he just puts people to shame. It's ridiculous. I haven't really kept track, to be honest with you. I just making discs.
That's awesome. Another question that I wanted to ask earlier is, do you have a favorite manufacturer that you like to dye and or plastic type?
Oh, absolutely. Neutron plastic is by far my favorite.
Nice.
It's not necessarily my favorite molds to throw anymore. I do throw some MVP, some gyro stuff. I love my Paradox and my Uplink. But that is by far my favorite plastic. My absolute favorite canvas to work on is a white rimmed, white plate Neutron. That is the best, in my opinion, for what I do.
So I'm an MVP/Axiom fanboy. I think I need to get you a disc or two to dye for me.
Send them on.
And I do think I have a blank white one with a white rim. I think it's a Vanish.
That is in my opinion, that is the best canvas for dyeing. It is a white rim Neutron disc.
Fantastic.
I have this dye right here. I have Neutron discs that were dyed over a year ago that look exactly like this. I mean, they look exactly like they did a year ago.
That's awesome.
No fading, nothing.
So what you're saying is MVP/Axiom is best disc.
In my opinion, it is.
Ah, good. Yes.
For longevity, they might not pop as much as, like some of the other plastics, some of the finished plastics, the Castoplast stuff. It looks really great, and everybody says, and we all know that it fades very quickly. And so to me, that's not something I even dye anymore unless I'm requested to dye it.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, Jay, there's a lot of good information that I've learned that I want to apply to my disc dyeing, like the Floetrol stuff. I literally did my first Floetrol like 2 weeks ago. And it turned out better than I expected, but now understanding your process, I think I'm going to try some of that stuff, and I have a better idea of how things work. So, man, great information.
Yeah, the trick is the mix. Get the alcohol and water out of your mix and mix methodically and make sure all those granules are dispersed into the Floetrol. And once it's thoroughly mixed, gently add your oil, and then be careful with the bottles after that. And you can make cells, like you could swipe your hand across it and make cells at that point. If your mix is right, you could literally can swipe your hand across it and make cells. So I just helped a guy today that it was just like, all right, I got to know. And I just told him, I said, send me your exact process for mixing your dyes, every single ingredient, every single step, and I'll get you dialed in. And so long as, almost always, send me an example picture and your process. And the example pictures usually have small cells, and I know right away they're using hot water and alcohol. And you got to get rid of that stuff, in my opinion, to have good cell structures and ease of design creation.
Well, now you can refer people to this podcast so they can learn everything they need to learn. If you had to start disc dyeing today, knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would do differently?
No.
Great. You learned what you learned by experimenting and failing, so.
That's right.
Awesome.
That's the process.
Well, again, learned a lot on the dyeing side of things. Now, we're going to get to know Jay on a personal level.
Oh, good.
So the next section that we have is favorite fave. So, what is your favorite band or song?
Currently, my favorite musician is probably Jose Gonzalez. And I'm really digging his song Storm currently.
What kind of music / genre is that?
He's a singer-songwriter. He's been around for quite a while. You've probably heard him in the background in a lot of different stuff. You just didn't realize it was him. Look him up, Jose Gonzalez. He is, I believe his father is Argentinian and his mother is Swedish, and he lives in Gothenburg. And the last time I saw him was actually at UCLA with the Gutenberg string theory. I took my wife down there he did 3 or 4 shows in the States. Big ones. He did 2 in San Francisco, 2 in Seattle, 2 in San Francisco, and 2 in LA. But he's really fantastic.
Nice. Do you listen to music when you dye?
Yeah. Yeah, cool. I not all the time. I'm usually pretty quick about getting in and out of the lab, though.
Mm-hmm. All right. What is your favorite food?
Indian.
Nice. Man, I haven't had Indian food in a while, and I can really go for some.
I love the spices.
Yeah. Makes sense. What is your favorite beverage?
Coffee.
That's a good choice. I hate the smell of coffee and the taste, but I still drink it. But it's mostly like just heavy cream and sugar with it, like a little bit of coffee.
I drink it black. I said earlier that I gave up drinking in 2001, and I got really used to drinking coffee. I drink coffee all the way until bedtime. I don't drink, I don't do that anymore. But I could, I have a cup in the evening and a couple cups in the morning, but I really like my coffee.
So do you drink it because you like it, or do you drink it because of the effects?
I really enjoy it. I know that some people don't like that bitter flavor, but I actually do enjoy it.
All right. Well, you're weird. So besides the disc golf and disc dying, what other hobbies do you have?
Well, I was a fly fishing guide for 25 years. Rowing boat and fly fishing are a big part of my past. Man, everything. I can turn anything into a hobby, but fly fishing was a big part. I've traveled all over the world catching fish and helping people catch fish. So
That's awesome. Have you ever talked to Jory? Because I think he does. I don't know if he does fly fishing or not.
he's up in Hood. Yeah, he's up in Hood River. I haven't hooked up with Jory yet. I've been in the neighborhood, but the last time I was up in Hood River, I was there for my brother-in-law's wedding, so there was just no way I could get away.
Gotcha. All right. Next section that I have. If you had to pick 3 discs to play any course for the rest of your life, what would those 3 discs be and why?
The Vandal, because it's a really controllable 9-speed that will flip to flat, and if I really put some heat on it, I can get it to flip over and work right to left. I'm a lefty, so for me, having something that'll flip over and stay over when I want it to is really important. I am working on my forehand this past year, so I carried that 157 Destroyer for forehands. So I would say the Vandal, my 157 Destroyer, and my CT Luna.
Nice.
Which are
right.
2 of the only discs in my bag that aren't dyed.
I have no dyed discs in my bag, surprisingly. Yeah, I got to change that. Next section, the perfect hole. What has been your favorite course and or hole that you've played so far?
11 at Camp Serene is one of my favorite holes in Oregon. It's just this beautiful left to right. I'm a lefty, so I can throw a ripping little Firebird. And there's several different pin placements that James has put on the course. So there's a short location, and then there's 2 longer out locations. And they both play to my swing favorably. But it's just beautiful. You come from hole 10, you walk down this path over a creek and up through these winding stumps, and you come to this tee pad, and we've put a bench in there, and this beautiful grove of aspens that bends out and follows the creek. It's just everything that you could possibly want out of a gorgeous golf hole, in my opinion. Camp Serene, in general, where I play, is like a fairyland. It is almost unbelievably gorgeous. And we've put gnomes everywhere, like hiding out in the trees and in these bushes, and it's just out of this world, man. If you ever get to Oregon, you've got to come play Camp Serene. Casey White and Adam Hammis played around out at Camp Serene. You check it out on YouTube. Actually, Casey busted out an ace on hole 9 in his hanging basket.
Nice.
Unseen. He just drilled it.
I'll definitely have to check out the video to see what that course is like, though. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any courses that are on your bucket list?
Oh my gosh, yes. All of them, every single one. Right now, my number one is I want to get down to Whistler's Bend. Scott Withers just replaced all the baskets down there. So I really want to get down and play Whistler's Bend as soon as possible. We've been talking about heading down there pretty soon. And I'm going to take another trip down to Santa Cruz and visit Josh at AGL with some of my buddies up here. And I'd really like to get down there and spend some time with those guys.
So, dream date. If you had to play around with a pro disc golfer and hang out with, who would it be and why?
I would have to say Paul. I like the way he holds himself. And I think he's a really good ambassador for our sport. And he doesn't seem to give any fucks about, the way where he is in disc golf. He's accomplished so much and holds himself with grace, and even when he's having a bad day, I love watching Paul Macbeth struggle, because he teaches me so much just watching him struggle, and the way he holds himself when he doesn't have a good shot says a lot about who he is. And I would really like to play a round of golf with Paul someday, and just be able to listen to him talk. I heard he's very personable, almost like in your head, nice. And some people think he does it on purpose, but regardless, I think that would be he would be my number one for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I agree with the reasoning why. So maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
All right, Jay. Well, again, I got to know a lot about your dying as well as you personally, so I greatly appreciate you sharing your secrets. So you are going to be raffling off a disc. So you listeners can grab potentially a ticket or two for an amazing dying disc by JK. So the disc that he will be raffling off will go live when this podcast goes live, and it will be live for 2 weeks. And 100% of the proceeds will go back to Jay to support his dying habit. And if you want to see him continue to produce amazing things, buy some tickets.
I'll donate all the proceeds to the local. So you guys buy a bunch of tickets, because I'm going to give all the money to the local youth disc golf group.
There you go, folks. So all the money that gets donated will be donated. So you can get
100%.
Yes. So you can get an awesome disc as well as help out for a good cause. So you can get some tickets by going to dyersguild.co/raffle. So Jay, well, that's awesome that you're going to be donating, but where can people find your work?
Well, you can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm at Instagram at Functional Discs, Function L Discs, and yeah, just that. I don't have a website. I have an Etsy store, but I've never been able to put anything in it. So yeah, that's kind of. I'm sorry, it's not more complicated or fancy. I don't even have a logo.
Hey, that's perfectly fine. Simple is good sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, Jay. Well, again, I greatly appreciate you being on. And until next time, guys, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Peace.